Thank you all so much for being here. I'm going to call this meeting to order of the TIRZ, thank you, number 2 board. If you would please call the roll.
Inglesby,
Here.
Mitchell,
Here.
Rizzo, Heiser,
Here.
Zuniga, Harris,
Here.
Carsley,
Here.
Tobias,
Present.
Cohen.
Here. Next order of business is item number 2, approval of the minutes. If you have had an opportunity, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Okay. Okay, there's a motion and a second. Are there any comments, questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next is number 3, citizen comment period. Are there any citizens that have signed up to speak or would wish to speak? Okay. Okay, if not, we'll go on to number 4, reports and presentations. To receive a report, hold a discussion, and provide staff direction on the 30% design progress on the roundabouts on Kohlers Crossing at Cromwell, Benner, and Sanders.
Good evening, Madam Chair, and board members, and the city engineer. Before we start with the presentation, I just want to kind of let you know that this is strictly an update. The actual final report for the 30% project is per your contract we have with American Structure. We'll be until next month. So today's just an update, and we'll be bringing you back the final report at the next meeting. Also, it's going to be a tag team. Oops. It's going to be a tag team between me and Pervez. He'll pick up at slide number 9. You've seen this before. It's just a summary of where we've been on this particular project, so I won't go through the details on this with you, but as I mentioned before, American Structure Point is our design engineer for this project, and they're completing the 30% schematic for us. Let's start with standards. I just wanted to give you a brief overview. This is a new acronym that I just learned, so I guess I'll tell you what the 2x1 roundabout, what that means. First question I asked was, what the heck is a 2x1 roundabout? That just simply means 2 lanes in one direction and then 1 lane in the other direction. So you'll see this more often as we go through these projects. Just to make a point, we wanted to make sure that you did know that it does accommodate trailer traffic. So the right-of-way, preliminarily, we think there's about 0.36 acres we're going to need. There's no homes or existing landscape that will be impacted. Detention will be required, and we'll have to, because of the additional impervious cover. Preliminary construction cost is $4.6 million. This is only the construction cost. This is Benner. It's another 2x1 roundabout. This will accommodate trailer traffic also. We've shifted to the north to avoid the ARA building there at the southeast corner. We did estimate at least $3 million for upgrading that tunnel to where it would meet ADA requirements. We need about 0.65 acres for this particular tract. Detention will be required on this project, on this part of that project also. And the estimated cost for construction is $3.2 million. Cromwell, another 2x1 roundabout. We're going to have acquisition required of 0.26 acres. Storm drain will be replaced where impacted by the roundabout. There is no detention required because we've reduced the impervious cover on this one. The preliminary construction cost is $3.2 million. If you'll notice the roundabouts in this location, in between there, we wanted to make some additional improvements. We wanted to mill and overlay the street, do some new paving on it. We wanted to add illumination throughout the whole project, all the way from 2770 to 1626. We want to make sure that our sidewalks are ADA compliant, so there's some sidewalks that we want to add in there. Utilities, we have some utilities that we may want to replace or upgrade, so that's about a $2.8 million. Total cost for that, from everything from 2770 to 1626, is $6.6 million. And this is what's driving the cost of the project up, or at least part of it. This is an overall cost summary. We added design, right-of-way, non-city utility relocations, construction, illumination, the Benner Tunnel. I anticipate that cost is going to go up on the Benner Tunnel. We were trying to see if we're going to have to extend the tunnel. We're going to have to add retaining walls in order to meet our ADA requirements on that. City utilities and design, we're estimating about $1.6 million. Again, we're going to fine tune this and have this a little bit more closer to the number we think is going to be required for this project at the next meeting. As I mentioned before, the next step is to bring you back the finalized 30% schematic, and then we'll wait for the board to give us direction on how we move forward with that project. We'll also have a contract ready for you from American Structure Points, and just in case we want to move forward with that. And if you remember, we estimated this project originally at $15 million, but that was construction only for the and design for the roundabouts themselves. And I'll let Pervez take it over here.
Madam Chair, board members, for the record, I'm Pervez Mohit, City's Director of Finance. So let's talk money. For TIRZ Board Number 2, the capital project list is what I'm trying to show you here on this slide. The current CIP plan for TIRZ Number 2 has 8 projects listed so far. So we have the 3 retail roads, which consists of Avenue A, Cromwell Street, Heroes Park Drive, and it also includes Cultural Trail, for a total project estimate of $8.1 million. We have roundabout at Cromwell and Kohlers, and based on the slides that Leon just showed you, the total estimated cost of that project is $4.4 million. Number 3, roundabout at Benner and Kohlers, $4.5 million. I'm rounding these up. Roundabout at Sanders and Kohlers is $6.4 million. Parking lot that is under design, $1 million. Parking garage, $10 million estimated cost. The tunnel improvements at Benner, $3 million estimated, but as of yesterday, I was informed that that might go as high as $5 million. Number 8, illumination and other improvements on Kohlers from FM 2770 to 1626 is about $6 million. So the total estimated planned project cost for TIRZ Number 2 is about $43.4 million. So how are we going to pay for all this? To get to that point, we have to do a 5-year financial forecast. How much money is going to be available? What are we planning in terms of expenditures? How much are we financing? What will be the debt service cost and other support costs such as maintenance costs? So we have preliminary 5-year financial forecast completed, but before I get to that, I would like to go over a few items that impact the forecast. These are preliminary assumptions. They're based on preliminary assumptions at this point. Revenue and expenditure data are subject to changes because as design is refined, costs will be refined for these projects. The certified taxable assessed valuations will not be available to us until late July. We have preliminary information from HaysCAD, but we do not have the certified tax rolls at this point. The estimated project costs will be further refined based on design, right-of-way acquisitions, easement acquisitions, field conditions that the engineering firms will go through. The estimated interest costs for future bonds are subject to market conditions and economic conditions. So those are subject to changes. So this slide is a pretty busy slide, but this is the 5-year preliminary financial forecast. So working from left to right, we have sources of funds on the far left side. So from lines 1 through 5, we have sources of funds. Lines 7 through 16 are uses of funds. Then working right, we have the approved budget for TIRZ Number 2. We have current year estimate for this fiscal year. Where are we going to land at September 30? Then Years 1 through 5 are towards the right side. So year number 1 will be next fiscal year. Our goal in the financial forecast is to keep the fund solvent, by which I mean if you look at the last line of this forecast, line 23, our goal is to keep that positive or as close as possible to positive. We do not want to let that go negative. So basically for each year, you want your sources of funds, which are basically property tax revenue, increment tax revenues, from the city's 50% and county's 50% is the sources of funds. We also have some interest income, and you'll see some bond proceeds as we're planning to issue bonds in future years for projects. On the sources of funds side, you will see the operations and maintenance costs. This is to maintain Heroes Memorial Park, La Verde Park, the PAC Center area, parking lot maintenance, and you will also see the construction costs, planned construction costs for roundabouts, for the 3 retail roads, the parking lot, and in future years, in years number 3, 4, and 5, you will see planned expenditures or forecasted expenditures for the parking garage that we have planned. So this is the 5-year forecast, and every single year in the future, the fund stays solvent. We have a positive balance. So using the same capital improvements project list that I showed you earlier, what is our funding capacity based on that 5-year forecast? How much can we afford of the list of projects that we have? You will see a red line after parking garage. So up to that $34.4 million, which is comprised of the 3 retail roads, we've already issued the debt for that. Money's in the bank, it's available, it's fully funded. Project number 2, Cromwell and Kohlers, $4.4 million. We will have to issue debt in the future. Roundabout at Benner and Kohlers, another $4.5 million. We're planning to issue debt for that. Roundabout at Sanders and Kohlers, $6.4 million. We're planning to issue debt. And these debt will be repaid with sources of funds from TIRZ number 2. They will not be a burden on the city's general fund in any manner. And then the parking lot number 5, which is estimated at $1 million, is cash funded, is fully cash funded from TIRZ sources of funds. And then lastly, parking garage is estimated at $10 million. The estimated cost is derived at using a $30,000 per space cost estimate for this garage in 2026 dollars. So that's another $10 million. That's going to be a future bond issue as well. So based on the 5-year forecast, based on the sources of funds that's available, we will be able to fund up to number 6. Then the tunnel at Benner, whether it's $3 million or $5 million, whatever we end up with in the final cost estimate, would have to be funded in a future year beyond the first 5 years. Similarly, the last project on this list, illumination and other road improvements for the segment from on Kohlers from FM 2770 to 1626, which is estimated at $6 million, would also have to be funded with future bonds, but beyond the 5-year. We just don't have the funding capacity to do that. So with that, I'm going to stop here and let y'all ask us questions if y'all have any.
How are we setting the priority for these projects? Because I know that we don't have, I mean, we have illumination as number 8 and unfunded, but we do have a lot of kids that walk to school when it's dark. Illumination is, I believe it's key for, at least for me. I think I brought illumination to Kohlers Crossing a long time ago. So I would like to know how we are gonna set priority for these projects, because to me, that should be under one of the funded projects. I don't know if there is a way that we can revise what and I know that ideally we want to have the flow with the roundabouts, but is there any roundabout that we can move into the unfunded projects to move illumination to the top?
I think we could delay the roundabout at Benner and do the illumination. So we would do the work all along Kohlers. We would do the roundabout at Cromwell and Sanders, and you could delay Benner, and it would still work if that's what the board chose to do.
I'm thinking about the kids that walk to school at 5, 6 a.m. to go to either Barton or Hayes. I think that would be a priority for me.
Well, I would just say, I mean, that's some feedback that we'd like to have from the board. If you did want to swap one of those projects out, we could certainly do that. We could also not make that decision just yet as we're finishing up the design for the roundabouts. As we come back with some better, more refined information, then we can have a better cost estimate for you, and then you could decide at that point, you know, how you wanted to proceed. The parking garage is another element there that's too. If you want to have it, the schedule, I think it was year 3. If you wanted to move that out a little further, we could look at that. And then a little bit later this summer, we'll have better financial information too for the appraised values, so that might have hopefully a little bit more flexibility. But if there's feedback that you guys have on the priorities, this is a good time to provide that to us if you have it.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to the illumination issue. That area is very, very bright, and I asked for an accident evaluation of the Kohlers Crossing from 1626 to 2770 some months ago, and found that at night there are basically no accidents at all in a 9-month period in that area. The only accidents were at 1626. It's very, very brightly lit, not for the kids, but the whole area is very brightly lit. I would like to see a light survey done of what types of lighting we need there. We may need sidewalk lighting, but we might not need anything other than sidewalk lighting. And I would like to see an illumination design and an example of the fixtures to be used for that. As far as where it goes in priorities, I don't know that.
Yes, Council.
I had a question, Perez. Are these roundabouts, I thought they were already covered last year out of the TIRZ. Are these the same roundabouts?
These are the same roundabouts. They were included in the current budget, but because of the delays, we anticipate they'll be incurring expenditures in next year.
So are they still on the original amount that we allocated $8 million into each roundabout, I believe? Or has that cost gone up per roundabout?
The numbers have shifted around, but if you look at on this screen, the roundabout at Cromwell is 4.4 million. The roundabout at Benner is 4.5 million. And the roundabout at Sanders is 6.4.
So none of the other budgeted money has been spent yet for roundabouts?
A little bit on engineering.
Okay.
If I might add, I know we've talked about the engineering design of the roundabouts and the concerns of school buses and other vehicles. And so I think it's hopefully getting worked out, same thing here, because you have the PAC Center, and then you also have people that are coming in from the north going to Hayes, so you're going to have two roundabouts there. So as long as we make sure that they're wide enough to where we could get those, of course, the school buses through. And I want to also counter on Councilman Parsley's ideas about the illumination, because you also have La Verde Park there. And so in years to come, that's going to be up and running, and you're going to have a lot of pedestrian traffic that'll be going through there, especially in the evening, not so much the students that she was referring to. So it could be just a matter of looking at what our priority would be. The only concern that I had, again, was putting those roundabouts there, because again, when you have events at the PAC Center, it gets very clogged up once it gets all the way down to Barton Junior High. So I know we're working on traffic flow, but if we have a large amount of traffic or a large amount of events in that area, how backed up it would actually get, because you're going to be hitting a stoplight at 1626 Kohlers and over there, but I'm sure it'll figure its way out. But I do agree with Councilman Parsley, having some form of illumination lighting there would be beneficial for those who are going to utilize that for when they walk to the PAC Center in La Verde, especially at night.
Councilman
Leon, can you
Kaiser?
tell me more about the tunnel at Benner?
Mayor Pro Tem, the tunnel is about 12 feet deep to the flow line of that particular culvert. In order to meet ADA grades, the maximum you can go is 5%. And so if you divide 12 by 5%, you're around 250 feet. But sustained grade at 5% is kind of tough on folks, especially like me. It's going to be a tough grade to handle for that distance. So if anything, we would recommend about a 3% slope. So when you do that, you're looking at 300 or 400 feet of ramp that you're going to need there. And that's going to require retaining walls. All that's going to require retaining walls. Of course, utilities are another issue. We've got utilities in the way. They'll have to be moved. But the big cost is going to be the retaining walls, and then we're going to make sure we have to have 24/7 security of some kind. Lighting has to be there. I don't know how the drainage works in those tunnels. I don't know what they've done to address that. But when you build that kind of ramp, all that water is going to be heading into that tunnel. So we've got to make sure we have a good drainage system there. So besides drainage, lighting, security, 24/7 observations of that tunnel, and by the time you get out of that tunnel to the grades that you need to get to people to meet ADA, it's going to take 300 to 400 feet. Does that help?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm just wondering about the safety of crossing through there and why wouldn't make that a priority as well? I mean, I guess that's what I'm asking.
Councilmember, can I tag on to that point right there, and then you can have it back?
Go for it.
It's just with the sportsplex being planned with land use on the east and west side of 1626, to his point, I mean, that's going to be one of the most important elements is people's ability to traverse from one side of the street to the other. And right now, you know, I mean, I don't know what the alternative is, but it absolutely is something that we need to be looking at, given the investment that we already have made in the area. And we're already moving forward with that, so I'd like to dig into that one a little bit more, figure out a way for us to, I don't know about prioritize it over the other things. I'm still kind of processing it all, but as of right now, it's something I'd like us to come back to at some point.
I have a question. I don't know if, Mayor Pro Tem, are you done?
Yeah, I was just going to finish up real quick. I was just going to say, as we're moving forward, and I think one of the things that worries me about that is something that Daniela talked about was the foot traffic there. There's a lot of foot traffic, so I worry about, as we're bringing in more projects into that area, there's going to be more and more foot traffic passing through there. I think if I was going to take out a roundabout, I think I would like to shift over to the tunnel improvements. It's probably something I would, it'd be a little bit cheaper than the roundabout as well. So I think it's more affordable, more attainable, but I just think the tunnel is probably a top priority. But I understand where you're going with the lighting, but I think as we get more infrastructure there, I think we're gonna get a little bit more lighting, and we've got quite a bit there.
I mean, are we trying to substitute the crossing a crossing area with their tunnel? Is that what the intention is?
Yes.
I am not in favor of that. I think we need to have a crossing section. Like, we're talking about Kohlers and 1626, like to go to La Verde, correct?
The pedestrian underpass
The
is
pedestrian.
at Benner. You can see it right here. So,
Oh, I thought we were talking about the tunnel that
Yeah.
is underground, like.
which also makes the let's wait on Benner concept. I don't know what the impact there is, but those projects are together. You know, one thing you could consider is if you go
Okay,
back.
now I see it.
'Cause-
Sorry.
So, can you go to the 9 in a row or 10 in a row with the red line? Well, I think Benner is the hardest intersection. Sanders has a lot of traffic, but Benner has a lot of traffic as well, and it is very dicey coming out of there trying to turn
Yes, it
left.
is.
So my suggestion, look, and there's no one who wants to build a parking garage in Kyle more than me. I've wanted to build a parking garage forever, but you know, the actual development, the vertical development in the Brick and Mortar District is slow, and we don't have a project. So if you took 6 and down and 7 and 8 and moved it up, you'd be able to get both the tunnel improvements and the illumination. And what you would get for all of that would be a complete street, fully designed, something we control, city infrastructure. And then, but what you'd have to do if you made that choice is recognize that a parking garage is gonna have to be part of a deal that we make with a developer or a development project. We're gonna have to figure that part of it out. But that would be my suggestion, even though I don't want to take the parking garage out. If you did and put the other 2 up, you'd have the funding for the complete street, which I think is good. If you don't do Benner is gonna be a disaster until you do it. It's a disaster right now.
Quick question. Leon, are we paying for any of the right-of-way acquisitions in this area?
We have some costs included in our estimate, yes.
Is anybody willing to donate any of that right-of-way acquisition? Because I don't see what they would need that right-of-way for, since it would basically be an improvement.
We have not talked to any of the owners along that section at all yet.
Do you think any owners would be willing to?
I wish, but
Yeah,
without asking, yeah.
That's what I'm
yeah.
saying. It seems like a reasonable ask.
Yeah.
It's not a lot of right-of-way,
No, it's not.
right? So it's only going to improve the property values for them, for us to do this. So I would like to see us approach that first, just to save on some of the infrastructure costs.
We certainly will.
It's a great discussion. Any other comments? There's no action on this
Just
item.
one other thing, if I may. With the 3 proposed roundabouts, like if it gets to a point where we're having a discussion about possibly removing one from the equation, or maybe even if we're not, like there are very clear walking paths for people, or like where I think we can be very predictive with where people are going to be starting, because like pedestrian safety is something that's come up a lot, and with the number of kids that walk to school, possibly trying to direct walking traffic to one of the specific roundabouts where all of them are safe, but potentially, like, it's where if we do have to eliminate one, that we go above and beyond to make sure that, the concerns that have been shared, that we try to build that into design. I don't know, just a thought, but I'm highly unqualified in roundabout design, so.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, I just want to go back to the tunnel and just think about, as we get more programming up at La Verde Park, I mean, we've got concert series coming up. As we get the trail coming from La Verde over to Heroes Memorial, we're probably gonna have more programming there as well, maybe big parades as well, like Veterans Day Parade or something in that category. I just start thinking about all the foot traffic we're gonna have there crossing the street. I guess that's why the tunnel improvement is something that I'm at Benner. I think that whole improvement at Benner is something that I think we definitely need to prioritize when we're moving forward on this. Maybe taking one of the roundabouts out, but I think that's something we really need to think about because that whole area is going to develop. And, I mean, what is the timeline on what do you call it, on the road and the cultural trail there? Do we have an
On the
estimate?
agenda Tonight.
Yeah. No, but I'm talking about, groundbreaking for construction is what I'm talking about, not for approval.
Yeah, for the retail roads, again, we'll talk about that next item, but we expect to have a notice to proceed on that in the next 60 days, 30 to 60 days to get going on that right away. And I think if the direction is for us to look at finding a way to do the tunnel improvements, the lighting, and the roundabouts, we can bring that back to you. I think the contract we bring back, I think we're looking at May 7th for
Yes,
that
sir.
contract. And we'll include those elements in the contract to design all that work, and we'll get going on it.
Yeah.
And then as we update the financial forecast, we'll see if there's any additional dollars, if there's any right-of-way that comes in less than perhaps what we thought about. I mean, these are all they're specific numbers, but they're still high-level estimates of where we are. So hopefully there's more flexibility as we go.
And I think about the parking over at Barton Middle School as well, and all those areas we have. If we do a big programming event out there, then people are going to be walking from those areas. So it's close by, it's walkable, so just thinking about future programming.
Sure, we understand. We just wanted to share with you the cost. We know it's an important project. It's simply just more expensive than I think any of us thought it was going to be, but we wanted to get that on the table so you knew about it.
So the idea, Mayor Pro Tem, what you're suggesting, or just an idea, not suggesting, is like we look at Cromwell Kohlers as a roundabout, then you work on number 7 as your illumination and also your tunnel, and then maybe Sanders and Kohlers. Is it something to work, that way we could have like
So I think number
Like-
3 and number 7 have to go together because it's all in the same area of the
like
Bend area.
option number 1, and
Yeah.
then option number 2 would be all 3, and then option number 3 would be, all of them with the tunnel. Just trying to see
Correct.
what the cost would be.
Yeah,
And also taking in consideration what the mayor is saying about Benner. I don't live out there, but I can imagine how crazy it does as far as pulling out, where some people have to go around, and I take my daughter to the dentist down there. So it's just probably identifying which one would be the key, and obviously all 3, but we also want to be cost effective as well.
Yeah. It's treacherous for both vehicles and people right now on all the intersections. So it's like, I think like, well, a parking garage is something we want, but it's really just a concept or an idea. But you take it out and put everything else in there, then people can walk from Plum Creek to the Brick and Mortar District without ever having to even touch Kohlers. And the traffic will flow through those intersections into and out of those commercial districts as well as Brick and Mortar District, so.
And you're right, if it comes to the point to where we would have to negotiate with the developer on a parking garage, there's gonna be some severance on their end, I'm sure. And so we want to be able to, of course, we want to be in full control of all of it, but it's got to be a give and take situation there. Do we want to put ourselves in that situation?
Can we also get a response to Councilmember Harris's request for that lighting study? I know that this came up, I think Councilmember Parsley put it on the agenda last year, and we talked about lighting on Kohlers. Was there ever a study done last year?
I think we had some proposals, but we decided to wait for this project so that we could do the elimination all the way from 2770 to 1626. If I had to design this project based on what I know today, that would be one of my first priorities, is to do the elimination. And the reason I'm saying that is if you try to do it piecemeal, you're going to be adding more poles. Who knows what we're going to be ending up with, because you lose power as you go up and down on these poles and try to go down into the ground. So I would just do the whole thing from one end to the other and get that knocked out so that if we do one roundabout, 2 roundabouts, or 3 roundabouts, we're done with the illumination that we want. That's what I would do.
And that's fine. I'm only bringing it up
Yeah.
so that if we do move forward with it, we're doing it in the most responsible way
Yes, sir.
possible.
Yeah, and to counter on that, Mr. Heiser, or Councilman Heiser, it's the same concept I was trying to do with Daisy, because how dark it is out there. But the bond didn't acquire any kind of illumination. So going back and redigging up all the sidewalks just to put in the poles, and Leon and I had that conversation many times, and Brian's driven out there before and seen how dark it is. It's like, how can we, just justify adding if it means a solar light here and there? But again, I understand what you're saying, that we want to start from ground zero. You want to be able to put the light poles and the conduits and everything underneath first before, because the roundabout's going to be just a specific section of the project, but the illumination is a good mile or 2 mile stretch.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, next is item number 5, consider impossible action. Consider approval of a construction contract with Harris Road Company in an amount of $6,413,378.69 with an added contingency amount of $320,668.93 for a total amount of $6,734,047.62 for the construction of the retail road facilities and associated improvements in the Brick and Mortar District. Good afternoon.
Hi. Rosie Trulip, I'm the Director of Administrative Services for the City of Kyle, and that's a mouthful of an agenda posting. So we had anticipated having Momark here to help present this piece, but they were unable to join us tonight due to some illness. And so I'm going to quickly go through a little bit of project introduction and history about the Brick and Mortar District and this project specifically. So the Retail Street project is located in the Brick and Mortar District, the northwest quadrant of 1626 Kohlers and Plum Creek. The project consists of 3 streets and a trail, as shown in the blue dashed lines and the red dashed line. It is a key piece of infrastructure that connects La Verde and Heroes Memorial Parks to one another and to 1626 and other infrastructure like the Cromwell piece that was built with the Hayes Consolidated ISD PAC. The project is part of the Retail Roads Agreement where in part the city receives the land highlighted in the screen for a future sportsplex. You can see that in green. Convention center, hotel, a mixed-use office site, and a restaurant. The idea for a pedestrian-oriented street and streetscape connection dates back to 2020 with stakeholder engagement and a master plan report presented to the TIRZ board in July of 2020, identifying the cultural trail and significant streetscape enhancements. In addition, in 2021, council and some members of the TIRZ board and city leadership visited the Indianapolis Cultural Trail and the Carmel Monon Trail. Other precedents throughout the nation were also analyzed, such as Fillmore Plaza and Larimer Square in Denver. The 2020 master plan report that was presented and shared to the TIRZ board included specific recommendations such as streetscape design, lighting, planting, furniture, hardscape, art, signage, and programming options for the streetscape. The WGI consultant team used the master plan as inspiration for the design and construction documentation work for the contract that we are reviewing tonight. Here are a few photos from the Indianapolis Cultural Trail and the Monon Trail Midtown Square projects in Indiana. Notice the special lighting, the brick pavers, planting and pedestrian amenities, as well as artwork placement. Similarly, here are some photos of Fillmore Plaza and Larimer Square. Notice the unique lighting attributes, seasonal efforts, the way that the street can be shut down for events, and how the overhead twinkle lights create a special atmosphere. I did not write this. All 4 of these projects were also used as inspiration by the WGI consultant team. This rendering here came from the 2020 master plan that was described earlier. Notice the relationship of the cultural trail to La Verde Park. It is intentional that it connects La Verde Park and Heroes Memorial Park. The adjacent streetscape and street have been designed by the WGI team as a plaza-type brick streetscape that can be shut down for events like a market, as shown in the rendering, while meeting ADA compliance. Looking north from the existing roundabout by the PAC, you can see the PAC on the left, Heroes Memorial Park in the lower right, the proposed Cromwell Street extension with the cultural trail, the proposed Heroes Park Drive, and an overall welcoming streetscape into the district. notice how Cromwell Street ultimately terminates into the future Sportsplex, allowing Cromwell to be a key north-south road that links amenities together in the district. The intersection of Avenue A and Cromwell Street in the Main and Main, as discussed earlier, Cromwell is the key north-south corridor, and Avenue A is the key east-west corridor, connecting 1626 to La Verde Park. At this intersection is also where the cultural trail turns to connect the two parks together. It is envisioned that a future trail work, It is envisioned that future trail work will head northbound to also connect to the future Sportsplex. Because of the specialness of this intersection, the intersection is raised to be flush with sidewalk conditions and made of brick to let automobile drivers know that they are entering a space where pedestrian activity is important. As the proposed street construction project takes shape, it will include a key connection to La Verde Park and set the stage for a strong pedestrian-oriented, urban and walkable development environment. Overhead twinkle lights, gracious sidewalks, shade trees, and landscaping all complement and add to this signature experience. Notice how the view corridor of the trail in this segment terminates on the La Verde Pavilion. The proposed retail roads project will unlock new development and investment opportunities because it delivers utilities and access to properties, including the 1.75-acre mixed-use office site that the city will receive directly south of La Verde Park. It allows for the Sprouts development to have better access. It provides the city access to develop the future Heroes Memorial Park restaurant, and it creates another segment of our key pedestrian, bicycle, and vibe network through the Kyle Cultural Trail. It opens up other mixed-use blocks as shown on the east side in blue for future development, while urban residential continues to advance on the west side shown in brown, just as the master plan envisions. Thank you, Momark, for your kind words and brief description of the history of this project. The item before you is for the award of the construction project for these street improvements. As Pervez talked about earlier, we have a little more than $8 million as part of the budget for this particular project. As you all know, in September of last year, the WGI contract was assigned over to the city. We did a bid process. Late last year, we actually got no bids as part of that process. So we repackaged the documents and let a new construction bid in February. It opened on March 21st, and we were happy to have 4 bids received for that. Our low bid here is Harris Road Company, but we did receive bids from Easy Bill, Capital Excavation, and Aaron Concrete Contractors. We packaged the work as a base bid and then a series of 9 different alternates that we asked for pricing on as seen here on the screen. The options that we have for consideration today, we can go with just the base bid with a contingency. We can do the base bid plus some number of alternates for a total amount to include some of that alternately bid work. We are actually recommending that we award 8 of the 9 alternates. And the last option would be to perhaps not approve the contract for retail road construction and go a different path. When we looked at these bids, it's important to know that really all of the bids that we received were over budget. There are elements of the project, however, that we think we can defer to a future phase that will still allow us to meet the vision of the project. Specifically, our upgraded lighting alternate requires some scope revision and value engineering before it can be considered. So that's the one alternate that we're not recommending that we award. We recommend, after we execute the construction contract, that we do reduce some scope elements through a change order to allow capacity in the budget to repackage and rebid the upgraded lighting and add that back in while still maintaining our construction budget of our overall project budget of $8.1 million. So items to be completed, you see brick streets and utilities, or intersections with utilities, streets and utilities, back of curb amenities, the cultural trail, some of the back of curb amenities landscaping, and lighting and vegetation. Things that we're talking about deferring or that we're recommending that we will defer to a future phase of work will be some of the understory plantings and stepping pads. The trees and the lights will remain. That we remove some of the Brick and Mortar District signage and lighting in the center of the roundabout, and that we remove the Heroes parking lot, sorry, the Heroes Park restaurant, the Heroes Park restaurant parking lot. This is something that as we go through and bring in an actual restaurant to construct there, that they would then include the parking lot facility there as part of their work for that development. So we can reduce some of the lighting base bid. We can defer the restaurant parking lot. We can do some reductions to planting areas. We can do some reductions to our fixtures, furniture, and equipment, all to an amount of a little more than $1.1 million. We expect that we will add back in then approximately $1.3 million for the upgraded lighting once we redesign and resolicit that work through the existing the contractor that we're awarding to today. So the change will result in approximately, with the deductions and then the addition, about a 3.6% increase to the overall contract that we're recommending that we award today, which is well within our contingency that we have for the construction contract and actually still leaves us good ample room for any unforeseen conditions that might come up as we move through construction. So as I said earlier, we recommend awarding 8 of the 9 alternates. And that post-award, we will execute a change order to reduce out some of the scope that we need to reduce out, that will add back in the upgraded lighting at a point in the future, all to maintain the budget that will allow us to get the bulk of the vision or achieve the vision of the project while just deferring some minor things to future work. When you look at it overall, you'll see soft costs that have been expended for this particular project at a little bit more than $1 million. Our low bid at $4.5 million. Adding the alternates, 8 of the 9 alternates at $1.8 million plus our contingency, it gives us a total of, and the potential addition of the work that we know that we're bringing back gives us a total of 8.144748, so $8,144,748 for our total project budget. So our recommendation is to award to Harris Road Company for a total amount of $6.413,379 plus a 5% contingency for $6,734,048 as the total contract amount for today's action. And we would recommend this for action today.
Okay.
What questions do you have?
Discussion, questions, or motion?
Got a question.
Yes.
Just wanted to say, for the planting areas, are we looking at the area, or are we looking at the vegetation we're going to put there? What are we taking out exactly in those areas?
So this is when I would look at Momark that helped us to prepare the details about the specifics of what we're taking out. But I think the idea is that we were reducing some of the more upgraded plantings that we had so that we're still able to have some plantings, but not a whole scalping of the landscape budget.
Right. We still believe there will be adequate landscaping, and it still achieves the vision. That's one of the discussions that we had extensively with the Momark team and our staff to look at that area. The thing I would tell you, though, is we do have a 5% contingency, and if we have any of that contingency after the project's constructed, then we would want to look at adding some of those items back.
Yep.
But we believe there's still adequate landscaping. It's just one of those things to value engineer to get us down to the budgeted level. There's certainly things, if the board wants to look at adding those back in, then it just reduces what we have for the other projects that we just talked about earlier.
So the reason I was asking is that when we first went to this concept and we were designing it, one of the things that we discussed early on was how hot it gets in Texas, right? It gets extremely hot. So I was worried about taking out trees, and if it's trees that we're worried about, reaching out to TDS or one of our partners that would come out and probably gift us some trees, become a partner on the trail, because they've shown a willingness to do that. If that's what we're taking out, then let's make sure we're checking all our options, making sure we're not taking out that cover that we were looking for when we initially designed this road.
Yeah, so we're not taking out the trees, we're taking out some of the understory plantings.
Okay.
So we're gonna maintain the tree cover,
Canopy.
The cover,
the tree
yeah.
canopy that we know we would want for Central Texas.
Sounds good. All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Councilmember Harris.
Boy, my lighting knowledge is getting to work out tonight. So we will have the whole lighting plan will come back to us for approval.
It won't come, for this particular project, it won't come back for approval. It'll just be a change order that'll be handled administratively.
Okay. Yeah, I'm concerned about some of the lighting examples that I saw on the pictures
Okay.
that are non-compliant and in fact they're kind of old school, maybe done 10, 15 years ago kind of things that we need to rethink.
Okay, I'm happy to pass that on, and we can visit with you if we need to before as we're looking at the review and the reengineering of the lighting
Yeah.
component.
For instance, the lights in the middle of the sidewalk that are sunk in the sidewalk, those are up-facing. We don't want to do anything up-facing. Plus, they blind you when you walk by, actually. So
Okay.
they're not good for your vision, and they're not good for the dark skies. So there were a couple of things like that.
We'll talk with the consultant and reach out to you. Thanks for the feedback.
Well, we can certainly look at some options, but I think what we're looking for from the board is if you want us to not move forward with the design on the lighting and to do some type of assessment, bring you back options, we certainly can do that, but that would delay the project. I just want to be clear. We can certainly look at options that are available with the lighting package that can be brought back, but there's some things that are going to be in the hardscape. I just want to be transparent about that. There's some things that we wouldn't be able to proceed with.
Councilmember Zuniga?
Yes, so just 2 questions. Is the retail roads, was that part of the earlier estimate with the Cromwell roundabouts?
Yeah, there was a line, if you recall Pervez's, his presentation had, I think there were 9 elements to 8, I was close. The first one was 8.144 million, and that's the retail roads project, and that's what we're
That's
talking
this
about
amount.
here. And that's the work that we've done to reduce some of the scope elements to ensure that we're delivering the vision under the budget that we have, or within the budget that we have for that project.
Is that this amount? Is that this 6.7 in there?
It's within that 8.144.
it's
That
within-
8.144 also includes soft costs,
Okay, so we're still-
engineering design.
So we're still looking at 43, okay. The second question is, as the development, so I really like the concept and the vision, but are we going to work with development agreements, Brian, in this, as they come in? Because what I'm looking at is, in order to achieve all of that retail and tax revenue, how are we going to kind of enable that sort of vision with the shopping and all that, and not just overload and multifamily there?
So Momark has indicated that they're looking at doing phase 2 of the Brick and Mortar District on the multifamily. So that's, I don't recall the road there. Maybe is that Benner? I can't remember what that road is right there to the left of the existing development. So they're moving forward with that piece of the project. They'll be looking to break ground on that in the next few months. This was part of an overall development agreement that was already negotiated and approved. And so once we put in this infrastructure, it helps generate the investment in the other parcels that are there. So this is all part of that incentive to make the whole development work. So we believe these incentives with the road infrastructure that we're putting in and some of the other work that's been done here, that will incentivize this area to be developed. We also have a couple of these parcels that will be dedicated to the city. I believe it has to be dedicated at a notice to proceed when the roads are actually starting construction. That includes the hotel site and the office site next to La Verde. So all of those things come together with an overall development agreement. And I believe that we already have that structure in place to incentivize it.
To make it look like what we're seeing in the
Yes, sir.
in the
That's the
pictures.
goal. Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Well, that was my ask.
I just have one brief comment. Okay, so Harris Company, where are they located? Are they located locally, like here in Texas or in Austin, or just?
I may need to look that up. I
Okay.
may not have that in front of me, but I think they're here in Texas.
Okay.
I think they're in
And
Central Texas. I don't know where
Central
their
Texas.
base is, though.
Okay.
They've done several projects, I believe, in Hayes County.
Yeah.
which
Okay, so
is-
they've
which
done
also-
projects locally around here.
Yes,
Okay.
which made them also a favorite of the selection team.
That's fine. So they know the demographics, they know the ground and bedrock and everything else that
Exactly.
goes along. And then the second thing, Mr. Langley, do we have any safeguards when it comes to the contract? Like if there's any delays or any change orders or things like that, that where the city can be safeguarded with that blanket to where if.
Stoddard proof. the lesson we learned
Exactly,
from Stoddard.
because we've had many projects, which we're very proud of.
Yep.
But we've had many delays, not to bring up La Verde Park, for example, but just something to where we can have safeguards to where if it does, we can be able to hold whoever we vote on accountable in those sense to where we can be able to make sure that we recoup some of our funding.
So we are working on our contract templates. This one is going to have more safeguards than the one you're referencing. I can't say exactly what they all are off the top of my head, but we will be including some form of liquidated damages. And of course, there's always a cap on how high your change orders can go. That's state law. So.
That's true. But just wanted to make sure that, who we choose, that, we have delays in the vendors that they use. We don't get into that hot mess again like we did with all our other projects. We have
Yeah.
something safeguard for not only us funding this, but also looking out for the county because they're also contributing as well.
We certainly appreciate that. We spent a lot of time as a team looking at this particular deal, making sure that we had the right contracts, the right contractor, that we had done a good job of looking at all the alternates and making sure we handle this. We feel very comfortable with the contract that's in front of you, that you can get a quality project on time. The contractor has done other work, as Amber had said, so we feel very comfortable with this arrangement.
As part of our low bid construction process, we do ask for references and we do check those references and we received, favorable information as we were going through that process. So we've done our due diligence on staff side to make sure that the firm that we're recommending for award of this contract is capable from what we can tell right now.
Thank you, Councilmember
So-
Tobias. Any other questions or comments?
I just wanted to mention, I've just been notified that there has already been a lighting study that's been performed for this area, so we can get that to the board and then have some further discussions about if there's any additional work that needs to be done on that.
For
So I
Kohlers
wasn't-
Crossing or for?
Not for Kohlers, but for this particular area on the retail road. So I just don't have the details with me on that,
Yeah.
Councilmember, but I'll be glad
It's
to
just
share
that-
that with you.
I think it's some minor design changes. that
I think it could be, so
And I think
I just wanted to make sure I gave you the right information.
Thank you.
If I remember right, when we had the discussion, a lot of the lighting was supposed to be downward facing, so LED as well when we were designing this, so I think we have that input.
I think we
that
may have
caveat
it,
in there.
I just don't have
I
it at
think
my
it's in there.
fingertips.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's
sir.
just not reflected in what we were seeing on the
Yeah.
screen.
If there's no further comments or questions, is there a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve staff recommendation that includes 8 of 9 bid alternatives.
Okay,
Second.
there's a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Again, I'm going to ask, do we have to get any more right-of-way for the retail roads since they were already given to us?
I think we're set on that. That's an engineering
Leon?
question, though. Yeah, I think we're okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, if no further comments or questions, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay,
Thank you very
so
much.
Uh-huh. Okay, next item is number 6, motion to adjourn. Oh, well, I didn't really make it, I'm sorry, I meant to ask. But that's fine, okay.
That's
All
a
righty.
good one.
Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, thank you all very much. We're adjourned.
We do need to go into TIRZ 6.